Most people think they know China, temples, pandas, the Great Wall. But what if I told you there's another side of China that looks nothing like the images you've seen? If you only stick to the stereotypes, you'll miss landscapes so surreal they feel like they belong to another planet. Hidden valleys, rainbow mountains, and villages carved into cliff sides. And in this documentary, we'll first uncover surprising facts about China you've probably never heard of, before exploring the most unreal places this country has to offer. When people think of China, their minds often jump straight to skyscrapers, dumplings, and the Great Wall. But here's the part no one talks about. The real story of China is stranger, older, and more surprising than most imagine. Take the language itself. Chinese writing isn't just a way to communicate, it's one of the oldest continuous writing systems on Earth. Over 50,000 characters exist, though most people use only a few thousand. But here's where it gets interesting. Some characters are thousands of years old, and yet they still appear on modern street signs. Imagine walking through a city today and reading the exact same script carved into bones 3,000 years ago. It's like time never fully moved on. But the language is only the beginning. What about numbers? In ancient China, people didn't just use coins. They used giant knives, spades, even shells as money. Archaeologists have found bronze knife-shaped coins longer than a smartphone. Imagine trying to pay for groceries with something that looks like a weapon. What's fascinating is that those strange currencies eventually evolved into the world's first paper money during the Tang Dynasty in the 7th century. That was 600 years before Europeans would even experiment with banknotes. Now you might wonder, how did a civilization invent paper money so early? The answer lies in another invention, paper itself. The Chinese created it nearly 2,000 years ago, long before the idea reached the West. But here's the surprise. They didn't use it for books at first. They used it for wrapping fragile objects and even for padding in armor. Imagine the irony. Paper, which we think of as delicate, was first used for strength. But money and writing are just surface details. Let's talk about something even more bizarre: food. Everyone knows about noodles, but did you know that archaeologists discovered a perfectly preserved bowl of noodles in northwestern China that is 4,000 years old? That's 2,000 years before pasta shows up in Italy. And the twist? Those noodles weren't made from wheat, but from millet, a grain most people outside China hardly think about today. And speaking of food, fortune cookies, they're not Chinese at all. They were invented in California by Japanese immigrants. In China, the idea of ending a meal with a sweet prediction would feel odd, Desserts themselves were never the highlight of a traditional Chinese meal. Instead, people valued harmony in flavors: salty, sour, sweet, bitter, and spicy. But food is just culture. What about science? China gave the world the compass, gunpowder, printing, and paper, the so-called four great inventions. Everyone has heard that. But here's what you probably haven't heard. The first seismograph, capable of detecting earthquakes hundreds of kilometers away, was invented in 132 AD. It used a bronze vessel with dragon heads and toads. When an earthquake occurred, a ball would fall from a dragon's mouth into a toad's, pointing exactly where the quake had struck. Scientists today still marvel at how accurate it was. And then there's medicine. Acupuncture might sound like a wellness trend in the West, but its roots stretch back thousands of years. What's even more surprising is that in some of the earliest texts, acupuncture points weren't mapped on human figures. They were mapped on bronze statues filled with water. Doctors in training would practice inserting needles, and if water leaked from the right spot, they passed. If not, they failed. It's one of the earliest examples of medical simulation. But beyond science lies philosophy. Everyone's heard of Confucius, but few realize how much his teachings still shape daily life. Respect for elders, the importance of family, harmony in relationships all come directly from Confucian ideas written 2,500 years ago. And those ideas didn't just influence China. They spread across Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, shaping entire civilizations. Now, let's take a leap into something unexpected: the Great Flood myth. Cultures across the world have one, from the Bible's Noah to Mesopotamia's Gilgamesh. China's version is the story of Yu the Great, who tamed devastating floods not by building dams but by digging channels. Some historians long dismissed it as legend, but in 2016, geologists discovered evidence of a massive flood on the Yellow River around 1900 BC. Suddenly, the myth looked a lot more like history. And finally, China isn't just about the past. Its present is filled with curiosities, too. Did you know the country has a city with more skyscrapers than New York? It's Shenzhen, a fishing village turned tech capital in just 40 years. Or that there are ghost cities, massive urban areas built for millions, but standing eerily empty. These aren't ruins from the past. They're experiments in the future, waiting for people to move in. All these facts, the writing, the inventions, the myths, the ghost cities, they're just the prelude. Because the real magic of China isn't in what you read in textbooks. It's in the places themselves. Places so unreal, they look like scenes from a dream. Stone forests that rise like frozen waves, mountains painted in rainbow colors, lakes that glow turquoise in the desert, and villages carved into cliffs where people still live today. And that's exactly where we're heading next. At first glance, it doesn't look real. Towering sandstone pillars rise straight out of the mist, some over 200 meters tall. That's nearly 660 feet, like nature's own skyscrapers. This is Zhangjiajie National Forest Park in Hunan Province, and if you feel like you've seen it before, you probably have. These surreal landscapes inspired the floating Hallelujah Mountains in Avatar. Most visitors don't realize that these spires weren't carved overnight. They're the result of millions of years of erosion, where water, wind, and ice cracked sandstone into thousands of freestanding towers. Today, over 3,000 of them dot the park, cloaked in green pines and drifting clouds. The locals, the Tujia and Miao people, have their own legends. Some pillars are named after mythic figures, like Heavenly Pillar or Fairy Scattering Flowers. Standing at their base, you understand why. They don't just look like rocks, they feel alive. To see the park's full scale, you can ride the Beilong Elevator, the world's tallest outdoor lift, climbing 326 meters, 1,070 feet, in under 2 minutes. Imagine stepping out at the top and realizing the mountains stretch endlessly in every direction. And just when it feels like nature has reached its peak, the path forward reveals something even more extraordinary. High above the clouds, a natural arch cuts through the cliffs like a doorway to another world. This is Tianmen Mountain, and locals call it Heaven's Gate. The opening is nearly 132 meters tall, about 430 feet, and framed by sheer limestone walls that seem impossible to climb. Yet daredevils have tried, from wingsuit flyers diving through it to monks ascending the 999 stone steps that lead straight into the sky. Getting here is just as dramatic as the destination. The mountain is reached by one of the world's longest cable cars, stretching over 7.4 kilometers, 4.6 miles from the city below. As you rise, the ground drops away, villages shrink, and the cliffs draw closer until you're floating in mist. And then there's the road, known as the Avenue to Heaven. With 99 hairpin turns, it twists up the mountainside like a silver ribbon. Every bend feels like a gamble between gravity and trust, but the view at the summit erases all doubt. Standing here, where the clouds curl around the arch and prayers are whispered into the wind, it's easy to see why people believe this is a bridge between earth and sky. Yet just beyond these peaks, a world of history and wooden streets waits, where time itself seems to have slowed down. Along the banks of the Tuojiang River lies a town that looks like it slipped out of a painting. Wooden stilt houses lean over the water, their lanterns glowing at night, while narrow stone alleys weave between temples, bridges, and market stalls. This is Fenghuang, the Phoenix Ancient City. The town was founded over 300 years ago during the Qing Dynasty, and its name comes from the mythical phoenix, symbol of rebirth. And you feel it here. Old traditions living in every detail. Miao and Tujia minority groups still wear embroidered clothing, perform folk songs, and keep rituals that have vanished elsewhere. By day, boats drift slowly down the river. By night, the entire town transforms. Music echoes across wooden balconies, and lanterns reflect in the water until the whole city looks aflame. For many Chinese visitors, this isn't just tourism. It's a journey back to roots that modernization left behind. And yet, if you step outside the wooden gates and follow the mountain south, you'll find landscapes where people didn't just preserve history, they carved it directly into the earth. Here, the mountains themselves have been sculpted by human hands. For more than 1,300 years, the Han people carved rice terraces into the slopes of Yuanyang in Yunnan province, creating an agricultural wonder recognized by UNESCO. The terraces cover over 113 square kilometers, 44 square miles. And when filled with water, they shimmer like mirrors, reflecting clouds and sunrise in endless layers. In spring, they glow emerald green. By autumn, they turn golden, ready for harvest. But these terraces aren't just fields. They're a living ecosystem. Fish swim in the water, ducks paddle between rows, and snails keep the soil alive. It's an ancient system of harmony, where every element, water, plants, animals, supports the other. Walking here feels like moving through time. You see farmers planting by hand, children playing in the mud, and traditions that have lasted longer than many empires. And when you think the artistry of the land can't get grander, nature itself reveals a masterpiece of water in motion. Straddling the border between China and Vietnam lies one of the largest transnational waterfalls in the world, De Tien. Its three tiers cascade across 200 meters, 656 feet, of cliffs, with water plunging nearly 70 meters, 230 feet, into turquoise pools below. The roar is thunderous, but the setting feels strangely peaceful. Bamboo rafts drift near the base, carrying visitors close enough to feel the spray, while karst peaks rise like sentinels in the background. Legends say the waterfall was once the tears of star-crossed lovers, separated by mountains. Today, it's a reminder that rivers ignore borders. They flow where the land leads them. The surrounding Guangxi countryside adds to the surreal feeling. Caves, rice paddies, and limestone towers that stretch to the horizon. It's a landscape that seems too cinematic to be real, yet it's all here, alive and untamed. And if De Tien feels vast, wait until you see the colossal curtain of water that thunders even higher just to the north. At first glance, it looks like a wall of rain crashing from the heavens. But this is no storm, it's Huangguoshu, the largest waterfall in China and one of the widest anywhere in Asia. Stretching over 77 meters high, about 253 feet, and nearly 100 meters across, 328 feet. It's a torrent of sound and spray that can be felt long before it's seen. Legends say it was once the training ground of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Journey to the West. Some even claim he hid behind the curtain of water in the very caves that tourists now walk through. Step into the water curtain cave, and the roar of the falls becomes a living heartbeat, pulsing through stone. But here's where the experience changes. Visit during the rainy season, and the falls explode into a thundering sheet, filling the valley with mist so thick it feels like walking inside a cloud. Come in the dry season, and you'll see smaller streams unravel into delicate ribbons, revealing the raw rock face behind them. The drama doesn't end here. Because just beyond, the earth shifts again, not with water, but with mountains painted in impossible colors. Imagine walking through a landscape where the cliffs glow red as if the entire land were burning from within. This is Danxia Mountain, the type site of the famous Danxia landforms, so striking they lend their name to an entire class of Chinese geology. Over 70 million years ago, layers of sandstone and mineral deposits pressed together, cracked, and were pushed skyward. What remains is a series of crimson cliffs, stone pillars, and wave-like ridges that glow under the rising and setting sunday. From a distance, the formations look sculpted, as if giants carved them by hand. Up close, they reveal hidden temples, caves, and trails carved directly into the stone. But Danxia isn't just geology. It's a canvas of color and texture. Rain and wind sculpted arches, caves, and ridges that look like abstract art formed by nature itself. Trails wind through narrow valleys, where the rock shifts from deep crimson to soft orange, and even purple in the changing light. From sunrise to sunset, the entire landscape transforms, offering photographers and travelers scenes that feel different every hour. And just when the landscape feels otherworldly enough, nature shifts again, transforming into a forest of stone unlike anything else on Earth. At first glance, it feels like you've stepped into a petrified jungle. Jagged limestone spires, some over 30 meters tall, 98 feet, rise like trees frozen in time. This is the Shilin Stone Forest, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of China's most surreal landscapes. Formed over 270 million years ago, the trees of stone were once submerged beneath the sea. Over millennia, water and wind sculpted them into the sharp pillars that now stretch across more than 400 square kilometers, 154 square miles. Some resemble swords piercing the sky, others animals or even human faces. Local folklore says the Yi people once believed the forest was created by spirits as a place where lovers could meet in secret. Even today, the stone forest is celebrated in festivals with traditional dances and costumes that bring those legends alive. The air feels heavy here, as if the rocks themselves hold memory. And yet, when you step out of this stone labyrinth, the world opens into something entirely different. Tranquil waters that mirror the sky. Set in the highlands of Yunnan, Erhai Lake stretches nearly 40 kilometers long, 25 miles, shaped like a crescent of polished silver. Its name means ear-shaped sea, and from above, it does look like an ear pressed gently against the mountains. But what makes Erhai extraordinary isn't just its clarity, it's the life around it. Traditional Bai villages ring the shore, their whitewashed houses reflecting in the water like a painting. Fishermen still practice cormorant fishing, sending trained birds to dive and return with their catch. At dawn, their silhouettes against the lake create scenes that look unchanged for centuries. On windy days, the surface shimmers like broken glass. On calm evenings, it turns to pure mirror, reflecting snow-capped peaks in perfect symmetry. Locals call it a sea among mountains, and it has long been seen as a source of inspiration and balance. But Erhai is just the beginning. Because not far from its shores lies a valley so magical it feels painted, with lakes that glow turquoise and forests that blaze with impossible colors. It's hard to believe a place like this exists outside of fantasy films. Jiuzhaigou Valley, tucked deep into Sichuan's mountains, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site where lakes glow in shades of turquoise, emerald, and sapphire. Some are so clear that fallen trees rest visible on the bottom, like fossils suspended in glass. The valley stretches for over 72 kilometers, 45 miles, with cascading waterfalls, snow-dusted peaks, and forests that shift colors through the seasons. In autumn, the palette becomes surreal. Red, gold, and green mirrored on water so still it seems unreal. Local Tibetan legends say the lakes were created when a goddess shattered a mirror given to her by a lover. The fragments fell into the valley, becoming jewels of water. Scientists, meanwhile, point to mineral deposits and glacial activity. Either way, the result is the same, one of the most colorful landscapes on Earth. But Jiuzhaigou isn't only about beauty. It's about balance, where culture, myth, and science meet in one valley. And when you leave its mirrored waters, the road doesn't lead to ordinary mountains. It leads to peaks where temples seem to float in the clouds. Rising above Guizhou province, Fanjing Mountain feels more like a stairway between worlds than just another peak. At over 2,500 meters, 8,200 feet, it's one of China's 5 sacred Buddhist mountains. What makes it unforgettable is the Red Cloud's golden summit, where 2 temples sit on twin spires linked by a narrow stone bridge. Climbing here is a test of will. More than 8,000 stone steps zigzag up the slopes, pulling you higher until clouds swallow the horizon. The payoff is a summit so otherworldly that it seems designed for meditation. Silence broken only by wind, and temples perched as if pinned into the sky. For centuries, pilgrims have seen this mountain as the future site of enlightenment for the Maitreya Buddha. Standing here, you understand why. The sense of elevation isn't just physical, it's spiritual. And yet, the story doesn't end at the summit, because further north, cliffs hide something even stranger. Caves filled with thousands of carved Buddhas, each one watching silently from the stone. At first sight, Meiji Mountain looks like a massive wheat stack rising from the land. But step closer, and its surface reveals something astonishing. Over 7,000 Buddhist sculptures carved directly into the cliff. Some are as small as a palm, others tower 16 meters, 52 feet high. The caves were first carved in the 4th century and expanded over 12 dynasties. Wooden walkways connect the honeycomb of shrines, clinging to the cliffside in ways that seem to defy gravity. Walking them feels like stepping through a vertical museum of faith. The artistry here is unlike other grottos in China. Influences from India and Persia mingle with Chinese realism, creating faces and postures that feel strikingly lifelike. It's as if the mountain itself became a canvas for centuries of devotion. But Meiji is more than art, it's endurance. Built into a fault-line cliff, it has survived earthquakes and empires, still standing as a meditation in stone. And once you've seen this mountain of carved silence, the journey pulls you onward, to peaks where philosophy itself was born. Huashan is about risk. Known as one of China's 5 great mountains, it rises to 2,154 meters, 7,067 feet, in Shaanxi province. But it isn't the height that makes it infamous, it's the climb. The plank walk in the sky is perhaps the most dangerous trail in the world. Wooden boards bolted to vertical cliffs with nothing but chains to grip and hundreds of meters of empty air below. Adventurers clip on a harness, shuffle sideways, and hope the boards hold. But the danger is part of the draw. The higher you go, the more the mountain reveals. Knife-edged ridges, Taoist temples clinging to pinnacles, and sunrises that paint the peaks in fire. For centuries, monks believed this was a gateway to immortality. And standing here, above the clouds, you begin to understand why. Still, Huashan isn't the final word on sacred peaks. Travel further north, and another mountain rises, not with danger, but with wisdom. Mount Wutai is different. Unlike Huashan's sharp ridges, its 5 rounded peaks are gentle, like open hands lifted to the sky. At 3,058 meters, 10,033 feet, it's one of the holiest mountains in China, revered in Buddhism for nearly 2 millennia. Temples here aren't perched precariously on cliffs, but spread across valleys and slopes, more than 50 of them in total. Monks in saffron robes chant in courtyards, incense drifts in the air, and prayer flags flutter in the mountain wind. Legends say Wutai is home to the Bodhisattva of wisdom, Manjushri, who appears to pilgrims in many forms. Some swear they've seen mysterious lights on the peaks at night, believed to be his presence guiding travelers. But the wisdom of Wutai isn't only spiritual. The mountain's ecosystem shifts with elevation, from dense forests to alpine meadows, and its changing seasons mirror the cycles of human life. The next stop takes us to a place where history is anything but forgotten, a city where the past still lives in every street. Walking into Pinzhao is like stepping back 600 years. This ancient city in Shanxi province is one of the best preserved walled towns in China. It's 6-kilometer long, 3.7 miles, walls encircle streets lined with wooden shops, red lanterns, and courtyards that haven't changed since the Ming Dynasty. Pingyao was once China's financial capital, home to the country's first banks. Old exchange offices still stand, their thick doors and iron vaults a reminder of when fortunes moved through these narrow streets. But Pingyao isn't just a museum piece, it's alive. Locals still live in traditional courtyard houses, markets buzz with activity, And at night, the lanterns bathe everything in a warm glow. It feels authentic in a way few old towns manage to preserve. And when you leave its gates, you don't just leave history behind. The journey continues to a place where history rises vertically, tall stone towers built not for beauty, but for survival. Across the fields of Guangdong, more than 1,800 fortified towers pierce the skyline. These are the Kaiping Diaolu, UNESCO-listed structures built in the late Qing and early Republic periods. At first glance, they look like watchtowers, but step closer and you'll notice something unusual. Each tower blends east and west. Roman columns, Baroque domes, and Chinese rooftops sit side by side. They were built by overseas Chinese, returning from Southeast Asia and the Americas, combining foreign styles with local tradition. But these weren't vanity projects. The towers served as fortified homes against bandits, floods, and turmoil. Inside, entire families lived together, climbing multiple stories to safety when danger struck. Some Diaolu are abandoned now, their walls weathered and vines crawling through windows. Others remain intact, symbols of resilience and migration. Together, they form a story not just of architecture, but of people who carried ideas across oceans and rebuilt them in stone. And beyond these towers lies something even larger, structures so vast they house not just families, but entire clans within earthen walls. In the mountains of Fujian province, giant circular fortresses rise from the valleys like ancient spacecraft. These are the Fujian Tulo, earthen buildings that could house entire clans, sometimes up to 800 people behind a single gate. Built from rammed earth, stone, and timber, some Tulu stand 5 stories tall and measure more than 70 meters, 230 feet, across. From the outside, they look impenetrable, thick walls with almost no windows on the lower floors. But step inside, and the world changes. Wooden balconies circle a vast communal courtyard where daily life unfolded for centuries, cooking, festivals, and even schools. These structures weren't only homes, they were fortresses, designed to withstand bandits, storms, and time itself. Many are still inhabited today, their walls darkened with age, but their traditions alive. And while Tulu embody unity within, the next stop takes us outward, to a lake dotted with more islands than you can count. At first glance, Qiandao Lake in Zhejiang Province looks like any other reservoir. But then you notice the numbers. Over 1,000 islands scattered across turquoise waters, each a small world of its own. Created in 1959 after the construction of a hydroelectric dam, the lake covers 573 square kilometers, 221 square miles. What makes it surreal isn't just the endless chain of forested islands, but what lies beneath. Hidden under its waters are the remains of two ancient cities, including Xicheng, a 1,300-year-old Atlantis of the East. Divers and photographers come here to glimpse the ghostly ruins, while above water, the lake is a paradise for boating and fishing. It's both new and ancient at once, a modern creation layered over forgotten history. And yet, if Qiandao surprises with what it hides, the next destination stuns with what it reveals: a vast lake that seems to stretch endlessly toward the horizon. High on the Tibetan Plateau lies Qinghai Lake, China's largest inland body of water. Covering 4,317 square kilometers, 1,667 square miles, it's almost ocean-like in scale. The water glows a shifting blue-green, reflecting the sky so perfectly it feels like Earth and heaven have merged. But Qinghai isn't just a lake, it's a crossroads. For centuries, it marked the meeting point of Tibetan, Mongolian, and Han Chinese cultures. Pilgrims still walk the 360-kilometer, 224-mile circuit around its shores, a journey that can take weeks. The wildlife here is just as remarkable. Each summer, thousands of migratory birds flock to the lake's bird island, transforming the air into a blur of wings and sound. The surrounding grasslands are dotted with yaks and prayer flags, reminders that life here moves to an ancient rhythm. Standing on its shore, the lake seems infinite. But further west, the water gives way to something even more boundless: endless seas of grass stretching to the horizon. High in Xinjiang, framed by the snow-covered Tianshan Mountains, lies Nalati grassland, one of the most breathtaking alpine meadows in all of China. Stretching across rolling hills at an altitude of about 2,000 meters, 6,600 feet, it feels like a sea of green reaching all the way to the horizon. For centuries, this has been the summer pasture of Kazakh herders. Their yurts still appear like white dots in the distance, with herds of horses grazing freely under the open sky. In spring and summer, wildflowers burst into bloom, transforming the grassland into a living carpet of color. But Nalati is more than just scenery, it's a legend. According to stories, Genghis Khan's troops once marched through this valley, exhausted and near collapse. When they found this fertile land bathed in sunlight, they shouted, "Nalati," meaning place where the sun first shines. The mix of myth, history, and raw beauty makes Nalati unforgettable. And yet, as vast as it feels, the grassland ahead is even greater, a land where horizons stretch without end. Few places capture the spirit of open space like Inner Mongolia. Here, the grasslands roll on for thousands of kilometers, turning green in summer, gold in autumn, and white with snow in winter. It's a land where horses still thunder across the plains, where eagles circle above, and where life follows the rhythm of the seasons. Nomadic traditions remain alive. Families move their yurts with the herds, relying on horses and sheep much like their ancestors did centuries ago. Visitors can still witness Naadam festivals, with wrestling, archery, and horse racing, the three manly games of Mongolian culture. But Inner Mongolia also shows extremes. The Gobi Desert creeps into parts of the steppe, creating surreal landscapes where grasslands fade into towering dunes. It's a reminder of how fragile these ecosystems are, and yet how resilient the people remain. Standing on these endless plains, you feel the pull of eternity. And just beyond, another force of nature awaits, the river that gave birth to Chinese civilization. Known as the Mother River of China, the Yellow River runs 5,500 kilometers, 3,400 miles, across the country, carving valleys, feeding fields, and shaping dynasties. It's here that some of the earliest Chinese civilizations flourished over 5,000 years ago. The river carries a heavy burden, literally. Lowest soil from the highlands washes into its waters, turning them golden and giving the river its name. But that same silt makes it unpredictable. For centuries, devastating floods wiped out cities, earning it another title, China's Sorrow. Yet the river is also a giver of life. Its fertile banks supported countless villages, temples, and farmlands. Poets praised its strength, emperors feared its power, and engineers built monumental works to tame it. Even today, dams and levees try to control its flow, but the river's spirit remains untamed. And where the Yellow River truly shows its might is at the next wonder, a place where it doesn't just flow, it crashes with unstoppable force. Along the Yellow River lies a sight that feels less like a waterfall and more like the river itself breaking into fury. This is Hukou Waterfall, China's second largest, but by far its most powerful. Instead of a wide cascade, the river suddenly narrows from 300 meters, 984 feet, to just 50 meters, 164 feet, forcing the water to plunge 20 meters, 66 feet, into a boiling cauldron below. The roar is deafening, like thunder shaking the earth. Mist rises in clouds, and on sunny days, rainbows bend across the spray. Locals call it the teapot spout, because the water bursts through as if poured straight from the sky. Legends surround Hukou too. Some say the waterfall is the river's heartbeat, proof that the Yellow River is alive. And watching the muddy torrents crash down, it's easy to believe. Yet, for all its raw power, China's most famous wonder of endurance isn't found in water, but in stone, stretching not for meters, but for thousands of miles. No landmark defines China more than the Great Wall, snaking across mountains and deserts for over 21,000 kilometers, 13,000 miles. It is the longest structure ever built by human hands. Constructed over centuries, beginning as early as the 7th century BC, the wall was meant to protect against invasions from the north. But it also served another purpose, a symbol of unity, showing that China could mobilize its people to achieve the impossible. Walking along its ridges, you see towers rising against the sky, endless stones climbing into the horizon. Some sections are perfectly restored, bustling with tourists. Others crumble quietly in the wilderness, their bricks scattered but their spirit intact. The wall is often called the only man-made structure visible from space, though that's more myth than fact. Still, standing on its ramparts, looking across the rugged terrain, it feels larger than life. And from the wall's military might, the journey shifts to a different kind of power, the political heart of China itself. At the center of Beijing lies a palace so vast, it feels like a city within a city, the Forbidden City. Built in the early 15th century, this was the home of emperors for nearly 500 years, housing 24 rulers of the Ming and Qing dynasties. The scale is staggering. 980 buildings, 90 palace courtyards, and walls stretching 3.4 kilometers, 2.1 miles. The red walls and golden roofs shimmer like fire and sunlight, each detail carefully designed according to ancient feng shui principles. But the Forbidden City wasn't just about beauty, it was about control. Only those granted imperial permission could enter. Commoners were barred for centuries, giving the palace its name. Inside, the emperor was considered the son of heaven, ruling by divine right. Today, it's a museum, one of the most visited in the world, with treasures ranging from jade carvings to dragon thrones. Yet, walking its stone paths, you still feel the echoes of power, ritual, and secrecy. And beyond Beijing's palaces lies a very different landscape, where nature, not emperors, shapes the throne of power. Few landscapes are as iconic in Chinese art as Huangshan, the Yellow Mountains. Rising over 1,800 meters, 5,900 feet, these granite peaks pierce the sky like brushstrokes from an ancient painting. Covered in twisted pine trees and veiled in drifting mist, Huangshan looks less like a mountain range and more like a living canvas. For centuries, poets, painters, and philosophers came here seeking inspiration. The Sea of Clouds phenomenon, when white mist blankets the valleys while the peaks rise above like islands, remains one of nature's most breathtaking illusions. Add in hot springs, oddly shaped rocks with names like Flying Over Rock and Lotus Peak, and the scene feels almost unreal. UNESCO calls Huangshan a cultural landscape, but visitors say it feels spiritual, as if time slows when the mist curls around the cliffs. And with over 60,000 stone steps carved directly into the rock, you literally walk the same paths that inspired generations before. But as majestic as Huangshan is, there's another Chinese landscape that may be even more famous worldwide, where water and stone combine into one of the most recognizable scenes on Earth. The Li River in Guangxi Province is often described as liquid jade, flowing 83 kilometers, 52 miles, between Guilin and Yangshuo. It winds through hundreds of limestone karst hills, their shape so fantastical they look almost sculpted. Imagine drifting on a bamboo raft. Cormorant fishermen glide past, water buffalo graze on the banks, and jagged peaks rise like dragon spines from the green earth. Mist often hangs low, making the landscape look like a Chinese ink painting brought to life. It's no wonder this view appears on China's 20 yuan banknote. It's a national symbol. For centuries, artists have tried to capture the beauty of Guilin, but no painting or photo can match the feeling of being there in person. And just when you think you've seen it all, locals remind you. Each bend in the river reveals a new scene, no two exactly alike. It's China's landscapes distilled into a single, unforgettable journey. From sandstone pillars that inspired movies to mountains where emperors sought wisdom, from stone forests to ancient towns and rivers that glow like liquid jade, China's unreal places are more than destinations. They are living stories, carved by time, shaped by belief, and still unfolding today. So, whether you're drawn by history, nature, or pure wonder, one thing is certain. China doesn't just show you landscapes, it shows you worlds you didn't know could exist. Thank you for watching this journey with us. If you enjoyed exploring China's most unreal places, make sure to join us again for more wonders from around the world.